Hi there, Elise Dewsberry here from New Musicals Inc. with another installment in my series, How to Get No Feedback from Elise. And today I want to talk about text and subtext. So recently we had a rather lively and really interesting discussion during my core curriculum group. That's my group that every year meets monthly to be put on a new collaborative team and write musical theater material from different source material and experience the art form of collaboration. But during one of those sessions, we were talking about text and subtext and how do musicals deliver on that compared to how plays deliver on it. And part of the conversation was about the fact that there are people out there in the world who just think as soon as somebody bursts into song, they're not interested. They don't want to have anything to do with it. They're not going to buy a ticket to a musical. They just don't want it to happen. And I don't think there's any reason for us to try and change those people's minds. There are plenty of people who don't have that reaction and who love musicals, and they'll be the ones who keep buying tickets. And I don't know that the other people can really be turned around, or that they need to be any more so than, for instance, I'm not a sports fan, and someone could try to convince me that it would be worth my while to watch sports on TV or go buy tickets to see sports in sports arenas. But I'm not going to do it, and I don't think the sports world is going to suffer because I'm not interested in sports. So I think the same is true in the musical theater world. I think we'll be just fine, and we don't have to try to change the minds of the people who don't think people should burst into song. That being said, I think we can look very carefully at what is the difference between what can be accomplished when people sing instead of simply speak as they would in a play or a non-musical movie or something like that. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about subtext and text. And I wanted to say something that I talk about a lot with my book writers. When you're looking at the diction of your character, generally speaking, when people are having conversations with other people in their lives, they very, very rarely speak their subtext unless they're, talking to themselves or to a therapist, or sometimes to a very, very, very close loved one. Generally speaking, people speak their text, but they do not speak their subtext. And what that means is we mask our subtext. We have things that we're thinking and thought processes that we're going through. We don't state those out loud. That's our subtext. We keep that sub. We speak our text and we put a mask on it depending on who we're talking to and what our relationship is to them. So is this a person of authority? Is this a person that I'm close to or not? Is this a stranger that I don't know at all? Is this someone that I despise, but I don't want them to know about it? Is this someone that I do not respect, but I don't want them to know that, etc., etc. I put some kind of a mask on the way I'm speaking in order to disguise my subtext. Now, the joy for a book writer is figuring out what is the mask that your character is putting on at any given point, and in order to mask their subtext, and how can you make sure that your audience is still aware to, at least to some level, of what is being masked, because that is the joy of being an audience, is figuring out that what someone is saying is not necessarily what they mean. Now, I think a plays, of course, here's the thing. I think that a play where people don't sing, I think plays are really good at delivering, at us understanding what subtext is happening. So people are having conversations and we can take the clues from what they're talking about and who they're talking to. We can get a lot of clues about what they mean as opposed to what they say without them ever saying it. And so I think plays can do a really, really, really good job of that. Um, I think it's a lot harder for a play to deliver on text, for a character to actually state what they're really thinking. Now, you can put them in a situation like with a therapist or with a very, 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 very close friend or loved one, where they can actually say what they mean and speak their text. You can certainly do that. The really old-fashioned way to do it, or to speak their subtext, I mean, um, the old-fashioned way to do it is like the Shakespearean monologue, where a character is left alone on stage, and clearly what they're saying is absolutely their subtext, because they don't need to hide it. They can speak it because there's no one to hide it or mask it from. And so they are speaking their absolute inner truth. That as a, and there are still some plays that might in some ways make use of the moment when someone is speaking to themselves or speaking alone on stage. There are a few tricks to it. They can be talking to their cat or to a mirror or to a picture of a loved one or something like that. You can sort of trick the moment into letting them be honest, because they have something to talk to, or to God, or to whatever. And then I'm sure there are some plays, even in the modern era, that are able to make use of monologues of someone talking to themselves, and make stylistic sense. I think it's harder to do now than it once was, but probably not impossible. Now switch over to a musical, and I think that a musical has particularly powerful ways to deliver both text and subtext. So when characters are speaking to each other, and the person, and they're putting on their mask, we have all kinds of songs that and I don't have a huge long list of examples, but for instance, from the golden age of musicals, every what they call conditional love song ever written, like If I Loved You and Don't Throw Bouquets, people will say we're in love and stuff like that. Those kinds of songs are songs where we as an audience are 100% aware that these people actually do care for each other, but they dasn't say that to each other, and so they sing the opposite thing. The Surrey with the Fringe on Top, where Curly in Oklahoma is singing about the fancy carriage that he would take her to the Bach Social in if she was willing to go. And it's all, if you look at the lyric in it, is 100% a description of what the Surrey looks like and what it would be like for it to go to the Bach Social and come back. That's what the entire lyric is. And yet all of us watching that scene know that it's not about that. It's not about the Surrey. It's about Curly trying to convince Laurie that she should come with him to the Bach Social. And we see through that. And, Laurie does a little bit, but maybe not as much as we do. So it's there are, and one of my other favorite examples is from City of Angels, which I have some issues with the way that musical ends, but otherwise I think I really love that musical, and I think there are some spectacular lyrics set to jazz melodies. It's well worth your time. But there's one song in there called "The Ball Is in Your Court," where the two characters, it's sort of this sexual innuendo sparring number, where clearly there's some interest and some possibility for some kind of involvement for these two people, but they don't talk about that. They talk about tennis, but they use every crazy metaphor you could think of in the world about the ball being in your court to become highly sexualized without ever talking about sex. And I'm sure there are miles and miles of other examples. I would encourage you, if you're watching this blog, put them in the comments, add some more examples of songs where the subtext is not being spoken, but it is made clear to the audience. The flip side of that is that, of course, a musical gives you the opportunity to have a character be alone on stage and sing the song to themselves in a very Shakespearean soliloquy kind of way that allows them to literally voice their inner thoughts, their subtext, to put it out loud there into the world. Anyone who's watched any number of my vlogs will know I'm not, or has taken any classes or feedback sessions from me, will know I'm not a massive fan of that. And I personally think that you can only get away with that maybe once in a musical, because my personal belief is that if you have, let's say you have a big moment of conflict where two people are really at it and they're angry and they're upset with each other, and one of them storms off and the other one sings for 3 minutes about what just happened. That's automatically, listen to my last vlog, that's automatically past tense. It's automatically the character is reviewing information they already know, we already know. There's no forward movement, it's static. It can be a huge tour de force musical moment, but I'm always trying to push people to be careful about those songs and try to set them up in a way so that even if you leave your character alone on stage to sing, that character still has a big decision to make that they make in the song, or they have to convince themselves to do something, or they have a discovery of some kind, so that there's still something active and something new, and it isn't just a character reaching an emotional point and then spinning and singing about the emotional point that they have already reached. To me, that's automatically static. But on the other hand, the nature of a musical means that a character can indeed 100% sing their absolute truth, their subtext, so to speak, in a way that has become very, very old-fashioned on stage, in a play. But I think it's still doable, although I would still push you to say, don't do it the old-fashioned way. Just leave them alone to spin in the moment of emotion. Still try to make that moment have some forward motion, some activity, some decision, some discovery, so that there's still something active happening, to the point that things are different at the end, even if they're only a tiny bit different. Things are different at the end of the song than they were at the beginning, because if you can simply remove the song and there's no effect whatsoever on the storyline, and we won't have missed anything at all, then I think you're wasting the opportunity of song. So a character can have even a small little epiphany or decision within a song, and that means that something happened in the song that makes things different when we come out the other end of it. So all that to say, musical theater, I think, can really master text or subtext, whatever you need at any given moment. And that's the beauty of musicals. Okay, thanks, and we'll catch you next time. Toodaloo.